Jimin discovers a shocking truth in Jungkook's hotel room. What he did there at midnight stuns everyone. The sharp crack of glass underfoot jolted Jimin to stillness. His breath hitched. "Jungkook?" he called out, his voice barely above a whisper. No answer. He shouldn't have been there. The hotel hallway had been deserted, the elevator eerily silent when he stepped off onto the 16th floor. Jungkook had missed 2 rehearsals, not answering his phone, not replying to texts. No one had seen him since the press event. And now, standing in the dim corridor outside room 1603, Jimin had made a choice, one that would change everything. He had used the emergency spare key card. He told himself it was concern, friendship, maybe guilt. But now, with the room door ajar and the unmistakable sound of something or someone having moved, he wasn't so sure. The air inside was heavy, warm, with an undercurrent of metal. He stepped further in. A lamp flickered by the desk, casting warped shadows on the wall. The bed sheets were crumpled in disarray, as though someone had left in a hurry. But it was the window that stopped Jimin cold. Smashed. A jagged edge of glass clung to the frame, wind curling through the opening like a whisper from something unspeakable. On the floor, just beneath the broken pane, lay Jungkook's phone. Jimin swallowed hard. His pulse pounded in his ears. Slowly, almost mechanically, he bent down and picked it up. The screen was cracked, but not beyond recognition. It was open on the Notes app. A message. One sentence. "If you're reading this, don't trust them. Not even me." Jimin's heart thudded like a war drum in his chest. What the hell had Jungkook gotten himself into? A metallic thump echoed from the bathroom. Jimin spun toward the door. Closed. Silent. He took a step forward, every nerve screaming at him to run, to leave, to pretend he never came. Instead, he turned the knob. Empty. No one. Inside. Except his reflection. Pale. Disoriented. Eyes too wide, as though he barely recognized himself. Something about the room felt wrong. Not just the wreckage. The tension. It clung to his skin like oil. Jimin backed out slowly, fingers tightening around Jungkook's phone. He needed to tell someone. Namjoon? Taehyung? But what would he say? That Jungkook had disappeared? That his room looked like a crime scene? That the youngest of them had written a message suggesting betrayal? He turned toward the desk. A laptop sat open. Jimin tapped the trackpad. The screen lit up, revealing a paused video. Himself. Recorded from across the room. Late at night. From a surveillance angle. The timestamp read 2:47 a.m., July 21st. He hadn't been there that night. At least he didn't remember being there. The clip started playing without his input. He watched in horror as a version of himself walked in through the door, calm and deliberate. In the footage, he crossed the room, picked up a folder from Jungkook's suitcase, and left without a word. "What is this?" he whispered to the empty room. He reached for the laptop, trying to find the file directory. There were dozens of videos, all time-stamped, all with different angles, some with no one in them, some with shadowy figures he couldn't quite identify, and some with him, doing things he had no memory of, saying things he would never say. His hands trembled. A folder titled Beta Proof caught his eye. He clicked. Inside were photographs, blurred, distorted. Some looked like scans medical, others like surveillance, screenshots. His own name appeared in several file names, along with words he couldn't process. Trial subject, amnesia loop, host override. A sudden wave of nausea hit him. He staggered back. That's when the hotel phone rang. Once, twice, 3 times. Then silence. He turned to it, frozen. It rang again. And this time, it didn't stop. He picked it up. A voice distorted. Low spoke just one sentence before the line went dead. "You were never supposed to remember." And in that moment, Jimin realized 2 things. First, Jungkook hadn't simply gone missing. And second, whatever had happened in that room had something to do with him. He stood in the center of that broken room, alone, surrounded by shattered glass and buried secrets, with Jungkook's phone in one hand and a dozen questions clawing at the edge of his sanity. And somewhere, someone was watching and waiting. "You were never supposed to remember." The line echoed in his mind long after the call disconnected, like a whisper carved into bone. Jimin stood frozen, the receiver still pressed to his ear, as if the voice might return if he just waited long enough. But the line was dead. Just like the feeling in his legs, just like the certainty in his reality. His breath came in shallow bursts. He dropped the phone. It hit the receiver cradle with a sharp click, but he didn't flinch. He could still hear the message playing in his skull, over and over, like a looped melody in a horror film. He was gripping Jungkook's phone so tightly his knuckles had gone pale. He stared at the screen again, at that single, cryptic line in the Notes app. If you're reading this, don't trust them. Not even me. The silence around him felt like it was growing thicker, more sentient. A pressure behind the ears, a hum behind the drywall. Suddenly, the door behind him creaked. He whirled around. It was Taehyung, dressed in a dark hoodie, eyes bloodshot, expression unreadable. His gaze darted quickly around the room, settling on the shattered window, then Jimin, then the laptop still glowing on the desk. "You found it," Taehyung said quietly, closing the door behind him. Jimin didn't answer. His chest rose and fell rapidly. The edges of his vision buzzed like static. He couldn't tell if it was relief or a new kind of dread that had arrived with Taehyung. "Did you know about this?" Jimin asked finally, his voice hoarse. Taehyung stepped forward, slowly, his sneakers crunching over broken glass. He stopped by the desk, avoiding eye contact. "I hoped you wouldn't see it. Not like this." "See what, Taehyung? That Jungkook is missing? That someone's been recording me doing things I don't remember? That there's a goddamn folder labeled Amnesia Loop with my name in it?" "I told him to delete it," Taehyung murmured. "What?" Jimin's voice cracked like a whip. "I told Jungkook to get rid of everything. The footage, the files, the drives, all of it." His voice was shaking now, but his face stayed calm, almost too calm. But he didn't listen. He said he needed insurance. Insurance for what? Taehyung turned to look at him then. Really look. There was something broken behind his eyes, something buried under layers of silence and years of pretending. For when it happened again, Jimin stepped back. "What are you talking about?" Taehyung opened the laptop and clicked on another folder. He kept everything. You, me, even Jin. We all participated. Whether we knew it or not. Participated in what? Taehyung stared at the screen. Project Echo. Jimin's stomach dropped. "That's not real," he whispered. "That's a conspiracy theory. Internet nonsense." "No." Taehyung's voice was suddenly steel. "It's real. Jungkook found the original files 6 months ago, and he's been trying to get out ever since." The laptop chimed. An incoming message. A secured chat window popped up. Sender. Unknown source. Message. "He's watching. Room 1603 is compromised. Leave now. Do not bring the device." Jimin stared at it. "Who is that?" "I don't know," Taehyung said. "But they've sent messages before, always at the worst times. Why didn't you tell me? Would you have believed me?" Jimin didn't answer. He didn't need to. The answer was no. Taehyung turned toward him. "We need to go. If the room's flagged, you knew something was wrong and you let me walk into this?" "I didn't let you do anything, Jimin. You went behind everyone's back just like Jungkook. You wanted the truth? Well, this is what it looks like. Bloody, broken, and buried under 1,000 lies we told ourselves to stay sane." Jimin's fists clenched. "Where is he?" "I don't know. You're lying." "I'm not." "Then who was he scared of?" "Who is them?" Taehyung hesitated. That pause, just a second too long, was enough. "You?" he said quietly. Jimin's face drained of color. His voice cracked. "What?" "That's what he said in the last message I saw. Jimin is the key. But the lock is broken." No, I wouldn't." "But you did." Silence. Hung like a blade between them. "Not on purpose," Taehyung added, softer now. "Not willingly. Whatever they did to you, it changed things. Your memory's fragmented, and when they needed access again, they used you. You were the only one who could get close to him without raising suspicion." "No, I don't remember any of that." Jimin's voice was barely audible. "Exactly." Jimin backed away slowly. His knees hit the edge of the bed. He sat down hard. The wind knocked from his lungs. "So, what now?" Taehyung looked at the laptop again. "Now we leave this room. Now we burn every copy of those files. Now we find him. Before they do," the door handle rattled. Both froze. A second later, a knock. Slow, rhythmic, deliberate. 3 times. Then silence. Neither moved. Another knock. Housekeeping. Came a voice from behind the door. But the tone was wrong. Too deep. Too calm. Taehyung stepped forward, carefully pulling a letter opener from the desk drawer. "We have to go, now." "Where?" Jimin whispered. Taehyung turned to him, eyes full of storm. "To the one place they can't track us. The fire escape." They climbed out through the bathroom window. The city air was thick and sour. The wind pulling at their clothes like unseen hands. Taehyung led the way down rusted steps, Jimin behind him, his heart pounding with every screech of metal beneath their feet. They climbed out through the bathroom window. The city air was thick and sour, the wind pulling at their clothes like unseen hands. Taehyung led the way down rusted steps, Jimin behind him, his heart pounding with every screech of metal beneath their feet. Once they reached the alley, Taehyung didn't speak. He simply pulled a burner phone from his pocket and typed rapidly. A black SUV appeared at the mouth of the alley within minutes. "Get in," said the driver without turning around. Jimin hesitated. "Trust me," Taehyung said, already sliding into the back seat. Jimin followed. The SUV peeled away into the night. Inside, the silence was thick. Finally, Jimin asked, "Where are we going?" Taehyung looked out the window. "Busan." "Why?" "Because the last time Jungkook disappeared, that's where they brought him back." Jimin stared ahead, cold sweat sliding down his back. Everything he thought he knew was unraveling. His memories, his friendship, himself. And somewhere, beyond the noise of the road and the thudding of his heart, he could still hear the voice from the phone. "You were never supposed to remember." But he did now. And he wasn't going to stop. Not until he found out why. Not until he found Jungkook. Rain lashed against the SUV's windshield like shards of broken glass. Jimin stared out at the blur of neon and shadows as the city unraveled around them, a twisting blur of memory and menace. The silence inside the vehicle was suffocating. Taehyung hadn't spoken since they crossed the bridge into Busan. His jaw set tight. Gaze locked forward like he was afraid even blinking might let something in. "You're going to have to tell me everything," Jimin said finally, voice low but firm. "No more half-truths. No more cryptic warnings. What happened to Jungkook?" Taehyung didn't respond at first, but then he reached into his coat and pulled out an old, creased photograph. He handed it to Jimin without a word. The image was grainy, black and white. A medical table, tubes, electrodes, and Jungkook barely recognizable, eyes closed, shirtless, pale under the sterile light. A long scar carved down his spine. Jimin's hands trembled. "When was this taken?" "January 4th, 2 years ago, in a clinic that doesn't exist on any map." "Why would anyone, what the hell is this? You think this started with the videos? With the files?" "No, it started long before any of us were even aware of it. Jungkook was the first." "The first what?" Jimin asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted the answer. "The first successful subject." The SUV slowed to a crawl, then turned sharply into a dim underground garage. The driver killed the engine without a word. "What do you mean, subject? Project Echo wasn't about surveillance," Taehyung said, his voice cold, distant. "It was about control, memory alteration, behavioral manipulation. The theory was simple. If you can rewrite someone's perception of the past, you can shape their future. No torture, no re-education. Just a few targeted interventions." Jimin felt like he was going to be sick. "So, Jungkook what? They experimented on him?" "They erased him, Jimin, over and over again, until he started remembering what they were trying to delete." The world tilted beneath Jimin's feet. "That's impossible." Taehyung looked at him then, expression unreadable. "You think you haven't been through it too? What? Why do you think there are videos of you doing things you don't remember? Why do you think there are gaps in your memory you can't explain?" I thought I was just tired. Overworked. Burnt out. That's what they want you to think." The words felt like acid. Jimin looked away, trying to steady his breathing, but every breath seemed harder than the last. "Why would anyone do this to us?" "Because we're valuable," Taehyung said. "Not just as idols, as assets. Our influence, our reach. They needed subjects who were already under constant observation, whose lives were already controlled, who would question themselves before they questioned the system. I would have known, Jimin said. But the conviction in his voice was shaky. You should have, Taehyung whispered. But you didn't. Suddenly, the driver tapped twice on the rearview mirror. We're here. The garage door slid open with a mechanical groan, revealing a narrow stairwell lit only by a single flickering bulb. Taehyung exited first. Jimin followed, heart pounding. They climbed 4 flights in silence before Taehyung stopped at an unmarked steel door. He knocked 3 times, waited, then 2 more. After a long pause, a latch shifted, and the door creaked open. A woman stood there, face partially hidden under a hoodie, a cigarette glowing between her fingers. Damn, she muttered. Didn't expect you to bring him. Neither did I, Taehyung said. Jimin stared. Who the hell are you? The woman exhaled slowly, smoke curling into the dark hallway behind her. Name's Mina, former data analyst. Level 5 clearance at Echo before I got smart and jumped ship. Why should I trust you? Jimin asked, narrowing his eyes. You shouldn't, she said with a grin. But I'm the only one left who can explain what's happening to your brain. Inside, the safe house was small, cluttered with equipment, hard drives, monitors, tangled wires. On one wall was a floor-to-ceiling corkboard filled with photos, strings, handwritten notes. Jimin's face appeared at least 4 times. So did Jungkook's. There were names he didn't recognize. Dates, maps, medical charts. Mina motioned for him to sit. Tell me the last thing you remember without gaps. Jimin hesitated. Waking up in my apartment, June 18th. I had rehearsals. We were prepping for the Tokyo showcase. Then, we rehearsed. Ate dinner together. Jungkook had that bruise on his collarbone. Said he tripped. Mina raised an eyebrow. He didn't trip, I figured. But he brushed it off. Later that night, he sent me a text. Said he had a headache. Didn't show up the next day. That wasn't a headache, Mina said, walking to the board. She tapped a photo of Jungkook, time-stamped June 18th, 4 p.m. That's when they triggered a reset. A reset? It's a neural disruption protocol. Electric stimulation to targeted memory centers. Short-term disruption, long-term rerouting. You forget what they want you to forget. Replace it with something believable. Jimin's mouth went dry. And me? You were there when they did it. That's why your memories are fractured. Echoes of trauma stick, even if they don't make sense. Why me? Why would I? Because you and Jungkook were close. Too close. He started confiding in you. He wasn't supposed to. They panicked, used you to monitor him, reprogrammed you to keep him in check. No, Jimin stood. No, I'd never hurt him. I couldn't. You didn't, Mina said calmly. But you watched them do it. That's why you're spiraling now, because the part of you they couldn't erase is screaming to be heard. Taehyung stepped in. Can you undo it? Mina's face darkened. Maybe, but there's a catch. Jimin looked up. What kind of catch? I can restore fragments, maybe even most of your memory. But once that process starts, you'll remember everything, even the things they buried for a reason. Like what? Mina locked eyes with him. Like what happened in Busan, 2 years ago, in the theater. You and Jungkook, the first override attempt. I've never been... Yes, you have. And so has he. You were the prototype, Jimin. He was the evolution. Jimin sank back into the chair, his pulse roaring in his ears. Why now? He asked. Why is it all falling apart now? Because Jungkook found a way to break the loop, Mina said. And someone is very, very angry about it. A high-pitched tone suddenly screeched from one of the monitors. Mina rushed to it, fingers flying across the keyboard. A satellite feed popped up. A black van. 3 figures. Military gear. They found us. How? Taehyung snapped. Mina's face was pale. Jimin. His phone. Jungkook's phone. Jimin cursed under his breath. I left it in the room. No, Taehyung said slowly. You didn't. Jimin's blood ran cold. He reached into his jacket. The phone was there. Still on. Still connected. Get rid of it, Mina screamed. Jimin flung it across the room as Mina activated an EMP device. The lights flickered violently, then died. Only the emergency red glow remained. They'll be here in minutes, Mina said. We have to go, now. What about the files? Taehyung asked. Mina shoved a drive into his hand. Everything I have. Everything Jungkook gave me. But if you lose it, we're all dead. Gunfire echoed from the stairwell. Go, she shouted, shoving them toward the back exit. I'll stall them. Taehyung grabbed Jimin's wrist, dragging him down the corridor. Wait, what about her? She knew what she was doing. Another gunshot. Then, another. They burst out into the alley, rain pouring hard now, turning the pavement to slick glass. Another SUV waited. Taehyung practically shoved Jimin inside. As the car peeled out into the night, Jimin looked back. The safe house was burning, and in the flames, something cracked open inside him. A memory. A room. Screams. Jungkook's hand in his. Blood. Taehyung. What is it? I remember. The younger man turned to him, eyes wide. What? I remember the theater. And suddenly, his world tilted again. Because in that moment, Jimin didn't know if he was the rescuer or the reason Jungkook needed saving. And somewhere, buried deep in the darkest corner of his mind, something else was waiting. Smiling. You were there, Jimin. You led them in. Taehyung's voice was hoarse, but sharp, like a blade wrapped in velvet. They sat across from each other in the back seat of a third unmarked SUV, the city blurring past them in ghostly streaks. Rain still battered the windows like it was trying to break in and say what no one dared. No, Jimin said quietly. I remember now. I remember you telling me to bring him there. You said it was safe. Taehyung's jaw flexed. I told you it was a decoy site. You went off script. Jimin shook his head slowly. You were always the clean one, weren't you? The golden boy. The loyal shadow. It was you who sent me that message. He's the key. But the lock is broken. That wasn't a warning, that was a directive. Taehyung leaned forward, his eyes darkening. You don't know what you're talking about. Oh, I do now. Jimin's voice cracked, but his hands were steady. It wasn't Jungkook who broke the loop. It was me. I just didn't know it. You were broken, Taehyung spat. You begged them to fix you. You don't remember the first trial, do you? Jimin stared at him. That's right, Taehyung hissed. They didn't erase it. You did. You buried it so deep that even Echo couldn't reach it. You wanted it gone. You volunteered. Jimin's breath caught. No, he whispered. You stood in front of the board, Jimin. You said, if it means I can stop hurting people, do it. You knew what the trial would cost. You signed off on it. You told them to use Jungkook if you failed. Stop. You don't get to play innocent. Not anymore. Jimin pressed his palms to his temples. It was too much. Too fast. The memories were unraveling in chaotic flashes, rooms with no windows, lights that buzzed too loudly, voices in his head that weren't his own. You were a ghost in that theater, Taehyung continued. You walked him in, smiling. Then you watched them put a wire in his spine while he screamed your name. I didn't know, Jimin shouted. But you did. You knew exactly what was going to happen. And when they told you to wipe the memory, you said, make it clean. Make it like it never happened. Jimin slammed his fist into the window, the pain dulling the roar in his head. If you knew all of this, why the hell didn't you stop me? Because I believed in the system, Taehyung snapped. We both did. We thought we were saving him from himself. We thought... He cut himself off. Jimin's voice dropped to a cold whisper. Say it. Taehyung looked away. You thought he was a threat? The silence was a confirmation. Jimin sat back, his face pale, eyes empty. You didn't trust him. I trusted the protocol, Taehyung muttered. I trusted you. Then you're a fool, Jimin said. Because I don't even know who I am anymore. The SUV slowed. The driver looked back. We're here. They exited onto an empty street in Busan's old district. The air was thick with salt and smoke, and the scent of rain-soaked concrete. The building ahead of them was decrepit. The sign faded. Bokeon Theater. Jimin froze. He hadn't seen it in years. Not since that night. He stepped forward. The rusted doors groaned as Taehyung pushed them open. Inside, dust hung in the air like ghosts. The stage loomed ahead, curtains half drawn, mold climbing the velvet. Here, Jimin said softly. It was here. He walked slowly down the aisle, toward the stage, as fragmented memories flickered to life like shattered film reels. He heard Jungkook's voice echoing in his mind. Hyung, what is this place? Don't worry. They just want to talk. Then why are there restraints? Jimin fell to his knees at center stage. I held his hand while they strapped him down, he whispered. He was crying. I told him it was okay. I believed it. Taehyung watched in silence. I let them turn him into something he wasn't, Jimin said. And then I erased it like it was a dream. Taehyung stepped onto the stage, crouching beside him. It wasn't just you. I helped. Mina helped. Everyone did. But he remembered, Jimin said, and that's why he ran. Suddenly, the overhead lights flickered on with a loud snap. Taehyung rose, eyes narrowing. We're not alone. A slow clap echoed through the theater. From the upper balcony, a figure emerged, dressed in black, face hidden beneath a hat. Touching, the figure said. Really? I almost cried. Jimin stood slowly, rage bubbling under his skin. Who the hell are you? An old friend. Or, in your case, your architect. The voice triggered something deep inside Jimin's mind. Cold, clinical. The voice from the training sessions. The one that told him when to sleep, when to forget. You, he breathed. You're the handler. Former, the man said, leaping down to the stage with uncanny grace. I've been relieved of duty. By who? Jungkook, the man said, smiling. He broke the system. He found the root command, and he buried it somewhere even I couldn't find. What do you want? Taehyung demanded. The man ignored him. He looked at Jimin. I want you to finish what you started. He left you a message, didn't he? The final key. The one file no one could open. Jimin nodded slowly. Beta final. That's the one. He encoded it with your neural signature. Only your recovered memories can unlock it. Why would he do that? Because he trusted you more than he trusted himself, the man said. And that, Jimin, was his greatest mistake. The stage lights snapped off. Gunfire erupted from the wings. Jimin dove to the floor. Taehyung tackled him behind the old piano as bullets tore through the wood. I thought we burned the files, Jimin yelled. Apparently someone wants to make sure. A second squad flooded the stage. Masked, silent, precise. Run, Taehyung shouted. They bolted through the backstage hallway, footsteps echoing behind them. Smoke grenades hissed. Jimin's lungs burned as they burst through a service exit and out into the rain. A black motorcycle was waiting unattended, engine running. Seriously? Taehyung asked. Either it's a trap or a miracle, Jimin said. Pick one. They jumped on. As they sped off into the night, Jimin held tight to Taehyung and to the drive in his pocket, the one with Jungkook's final message. But inside his mind, something darker was stirring. A voice. Not his. Not Jungkook's. But familiar. You still don't see, do you? You weren't the weapon, Jimin. You were the trigger. And the world, once again, began to break. Not in chaos, but in clarity. The motorcycle sliced through the wet night like a blade through silk, wheels spinning over rain-slick asphalt, the wind screaming past their ears. Jimin clung to Taehyung's back, soaked to the bone, heart racing with a strange cocktail of terror and resolve. They didn't speak. They couldn't. The sound of pursuit was behind them, distant engines, flashlights cutting through fog, the unmistakable thrum of helicopters tracking from above. The safe house in Busan was gone. Mina was gone. And Jimin's head felt like a broken mirror, each memory that returned cut deeper, sharper. But this time, he wouldn't run from it. This time, he was going to look in the mirror, no matter what. Stared back. They stopped at an abandoned shipping yard near the docks, hidden in the maze of rusted containers and shadows. Taehyung killed the engine, both of them breathing hard, rain dripping from their hair and jackets. Are they still behind us? Jimin asked. Taehyung scanned the sky. No, we lost them near the tunnel, but it won't last. Jimin pulled the flash drive from his soaked pocket and held it in his palm like it might burn him. This has the final message. Taehyung looked at him. You sure you want to know what it says? Jimin's voice was steady now. I have to. I owe him that much. They found an old container office nearby, half collapsed and reeking of mold and rust. Inside, they powered up a dusty laptop that wheezed to life after several painful minutes. Taehyung connected the drive. The screen flickered. A single folder. Beta. Final. Jimin stared at it. His hands hovered above the keyboard, shaking slightly. If I open this, Nothing will be the same. Nothing ever was, Taehyung said quietly. We were just too blind to see it. Jimin double-clicked. A video file opened. Grainy footage. Handheld. Jungkook's face appeared on screen. Unshaven, eyes red, voice rough like he hadn't slept in days. He was sitting in what looked like a hotel room, dimly lit, quiet, his gaze locked on the camera. On Jimin. Young, Jungkook said, and Jimin's breath caught. If you're seeing this, I'm probably already gone. I don't know where they've taken me. I don't know how long I have. But I need you to remember. The image flickered. I trusted you more than anyone. That's why I gave you the key. Because somewhere deep inside you, beneath all the layers they've rewritten, you're still you, the real you. Jimin pressed his knuckles to his mouth, his eyes burning. They did things to us, Hyung. Things I can't even describe. We were part of a pilot echo. It wasn't just a mind project. It was a control experiment. Each of us had roles, subjects, handlers, triggers. You were mine. Taehyung looked away. You didn't know. Not at first. But when the first override failed, they activated your secondary protocol. You weren't just meant to monitor me, Jimin. You were meant to erase me. Jimin's entire body locked up. But you couldn't, Jungkook continued, voice trembling now. You hesitated. You glitched. And that was the first time I saw the crack in the program. The first time I knew we could beat it. The screen shook. The camera fell sideways. For a moment, only audio remained. They called you Trigger Zero. You were the original interface, the first subject to sync with multiple echo nodes. You were the one they tested on before me. You were the one they broke. The image returned. Jungkook's face closer now. I forgive you, Hyung. I always did. But you need to understand what they turned you into. Another flicker. A new video loaded. Surveillance footage. Jimin, in a hospital room, dressed in a white gown. His hands restrained. Wires attached to his temples. A man stood beside him shadowed, holding a syringe. Dr. Han, the handler. Jimin's voice echoed through the speakers. I don't want to forget. Please, I can handle it. Dr. Han, you said that last time. Jimin, don't erase him. Not again. Dr. Han, you're not in control anymore, Park Jimin. You are the protocol. The screen froze on Jimin's face. Desperate. Terrified. Then it went black. The silence that followed was suffocating. Taehyung whispered, You tried to protect him. I was the reason he needed protecting. Jimin whispered back. No, Taehyung said. You were used. You were manipulated. You're not the villain here. I was the gun in their hand. And now, Taehyung said, reaching forward, you get to unload it. The laptop pinged again. One final message appeared. Jimin, if you still love me, don't let them use you again. If I'm still alive, find me. But if I'm not, burn it all down. Jimin stood, his fists clenched. We need to find the core, he said. The original server? Taehyung frowned. Mina said it was off-grid. Then we go back to the beginning. Seoul. The training site. Facility 7. Taehyung's eyes widened. That place was shut down. No, Jimin said. It just went deeper underground. They traveled by night, switching cars every few hours. They slept in shifts, ate only when necessary. Every corner felt like it had eyes. Every radio static felt like a warning. And Jimin didn't rest. He couldn't. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Jungkook strapped to that table, screaming, reaching for him. Facility 7 was buried beneath an old military base outside Seoul, officially abandoned. But Jimin remembered the codes. His hands typed them automatically, muscle memory overriding fear. Inside, the air was colder than the grave. Fluorescent lights flickered to life, casting ghostly shadows across walls lined with obsolete tech and forgotten sins. Are you sure it's here? Taehyung asked, voice hushed. I'm sure, Jimin said. They never built new systems. They just rewrote the ones that worked. They found the server core buried behind a biometric vault. Jimin placed his hand on the scanner. It buzzed. Denied. Of course, he muttered. I'm not who I was. Then let me try, Taehyung said. He placed his hand on the panel. Access granted. What the hell? Jimin whispered. Taehyung didn't answer. The vault opened with a hiss of pressurized air. Inside were racks of drives, servers, blinking softly, still warm, still alive. Still listening. This is it, Jimin said. This is where they kept us. Taehyung stepped forward, tracing a finger along a labeled panel. Trigger 0, Handler 2. Subject K97. K97, Jimin said. That's Jungkook's tag. And here's yours, Taehyung said, pointing to another. Protocol. Mirror. Jimin stared. What does that mean? Before Taehyung could answer, alarms erupted. Intrusion detected. Steel doors slammed shut. Lights turned red. You led them here, Jimin said, turning to Taehyung. Taehyung looked stricken. No, I didn't. Your handprint still worked. You still had access. I didn't know. I thought I was locked out like the rest. The speakers came alive. Dr. Han's voice. I see you've returned, Jimin. Jimin's heart stopped. I must say, I'm impressed. Not just that you remembered, but that you felt. That's the one part we never could erase. Where is he? Jimin shouted. Where's Jungkook? Closer than you think, the voice said. A screen blinked on. Jungkook, eyes closed. Alive, but hooked to wires. Let him go, Jimin screamed. You don't get to give orders, Dr. Han said, but I'll make you a deal. Jimin's voice cracked. What deal? Your memories for his. Full reversion. You walk back into the protocol willingly. We wipe the trauma. We restore the clean version. The perfect version. And Jungkook? He walks, free. Taehyung looked at Jimin, panicked. You can't. Jimin didn't hesitate. He stepped toward the main console. I'll do it. Jimin, no. He looked at Taehyung. This isn't a sacrifice. It is. No, Jimin whispered. This is a reckoning. He pressed his palm to the core override. The system screamed to life. Memories rushed in like a flood. Every scream. Every test. Every touch of the needle. Every time he forgot. Every time he begged to forget. And in the heart of the fire, a voice whispered, You are the trigger. But this time, Jimin didn't pull away. He pulled the plug with one final command. He initiated the collapse. All data, all protocols, all files. Gone. Facility 7 began to shake. Explosions triggered down the corridor. Lights burst. Get him! Jimin shouted to Taehyung. Get Jungkook out! What about you? Jimin turned, smiling through tears. I'm staying. Taehyung screamed his name, but Jimin didn't follow. He walked back into the fire, into the core, where it all began. And as the world burned around him, he whispered, For every memory you stole, I give you this. I remember. Then, silence. Real, permanent silence. But not emptiness. Freedom. Because Jimin was no longer the trigger. He was the one who pulled it free.